Author Study of Amy Tan by Tiffany and Danya.
The author Amy Tan had a unique and somewhat traumatic childhood that influenced much of her work later in life. She was born on February 19, 1952, in Oakland, California, to immigrant parents from China. Her father was an electrical engineer and Baptist minister. Her mother left behind a traumatic past life in China, including an abusive husband, three daughters whom she abandoned, and the memory of witnessing her mother's suicide at the young age of 6 years old. When Amy was 15, her father and older brother were suddenly both diagnosed with brain tumors. They soon died within 6 months of each other. This led Amy's mother to believe that they were cursed, and the family moved to Switzerland, which caused tension in the mother-daughter relationship between Amy and her mother Daisy.
Common themes in Amy Tan's work include mother-daughter relationships, heritage and family histories, immigration and assimilation, intergenerational culture gaps, rebellion, guilt and shame, randomness, chance, luck, and fate.
One of my favorite passages by Amy Tan is an essay she wrote called Mother Tongue. In this work, Tan explains how she began to write stories using all of the Englishes she grew up with. She reflects on the influences of her mother's use of language on her later success as an author. Tan writes, "Lately, I've been giving more thought to the kind of English my mother speaks. Like others, I have described it to people as broken or fractured English. But I wince when I say that. I've heard other terms used, limited English, for example. But they seem just as bad, as if everything is limited, including people's perceptions of the limited English speaker. I know this for a fact, because when I was growing up, my mother's limited English limited my perception of her. I was ashamed of her English. I believed that her English reflected the quality of what she had to say. That is, because she expressed them imperfectly, her thoughts were imperfect. How these different Englishes, or even a language other than English, contribute to a person's identity is a crucial issue for many students. Using this multicultural text can be extremely powerful because students can explore the issue for themselves, drawing upon their own experiences with language, accents, and dialects. Students could write journal entries about a time when someone made an assumption about them based on their use of language. Sharing this type of literature in the classroom allows students the opportunity to reflect upon and grow ideas about who they are and how they interact with others.
I'm fascinated by Asian American literature because of the overlapping cultural values between the Asian and Latino cultures, like strong family values, discipline, academic excellence and achievement, immigration, dual identities, translanguaging, etc. The first book I read that presented Asian Americans living abroad was The Joy Luck Club. When I was in elementary school, I would frequently visit the library to look, feel, and touch books. I carefully studied the book's cover, took notice at its color, the font of the letters, and the images, if any, printed on the book. I would read the brief synopsis of the book to determine whether the story was interesting enough to read. When I was in high school, I went to the public library one day to look at their newest book selections. Joy Luck Club caught my eye because of the original illustration of the cover. It was a time when I was exploring different books and genres. What probably appealed to me was that the main characters were all women that have gone through war, death, and loss in their past. The Joy Luck Club was also appealing to me because at the time I was reevaluating my relationship with my mom after living with my grandmother for 4 years in the Dominican Republic. Like Jing Mei, the main character of the Joy Luck Club, There was a lot about my mom that I did not know, and even more so about her past, which shaped who she was.
When I was growing up, my mother was constantly trying to convince me to read more literature by Asian American authors in the hopes that I would not lose my culture. I was probably in middle school when she brought home a copy of The Joy Luck Club from the library. Unfortunately, I was too quick to judge the book by its cover, and I refused to read it because it looked too traditional and boring. It wasn't until many years later, when I was in college, that I watched the film adaptation. Many of the characters and scenes resonated with my personal experiences growing up in an Asian American household, so I finally read and ended up loving the book.
Joy Luck Club describes the lives of four Asian women who fled China in the 1940s and their four very Americanized daughters. The novel focuses on Jing Mei, or June Wu, a 36-year-old daughter who, after her mother's death, takes her place at the meetings of a social group called the Joy Luck Club. As its members play mahjong and feast on Chinese delicacies, the older women tell stories about the past and lament the barriers that exist between their daughters and themselves. Through their stories, Jing Mei comes to appreciate the richness of her heritage. The Joy Luck Club has 7 narrators: Jing Mei Wu, Lena and Yin Yang St. Clair, Anne Mei Su and Rose Su Jordan, and Lyndall and Waverly Zhang. Jing Mei Wu also tells her mother's story, Suyang Wu. Each narrator is the protagonist of their own story. The childhood and youth memories of the older Chinese women take place in China before coming to live in San Francisco or Oakland. Their daughters, who are American-born, remember events that happened only in San Francisco or in Oakland. Jing Mei travels to China at the end of the novel. Scenes from the Joy Luck Club movie adaptation. Children's books by Amy Tan. Young adult literature books by Amy Tan. Lu Lingyang searches for the name of her mother, the daughter of the famous bone setter, from the mouth of the mountain. Trying to hold on to the evaporating past, she begins to write all that she can remember of her life as a girl in China. Meanwhile, her daughter Ruth, who is a ghostwriter for authors of self-help book, is losing her ability to speak up for herself in front of the man she lives with and his 2 teenage daughters.
The following blog post is from Amy Tan's website. It was posted on May 14th, 2014. What made me think I could be a novelist when there was contrary evidence that I should even try? I scored in the 400s in the verbal portion of the SAT. So it did not occur to me that I could be a novelist. I did not have that dream. I did not try to write fiction until I was 33. But from an early age, I was a writer because I had a feeling about words, that no one word was sufficient to describe what I really felt or saw or had experienced. I tried to find variations in a thesaurus. The nuances excited me, but the answers were not there. The word love was not enough to express what love was, nor was the word unfair able to capture why I felt I had been punished for what I did not do. The word alone did not capture what had happened last week or what might happen in the future. A single word was like a left shoe that belonged to someone else and was too small, yet had to be worn because there was nothing else. Several words were also not enough to describe what I meant or felt, nor was a sentence or even a paragraph. In fact, the number of words was not enough until I wrote a whole fictional story that included circumstances, qualities, details, questions, and a big mess that needed to be sorted out. And while the details and characters were fictional, the mess was very real, and that was what I would recognize as the real truth that had nothing to do with the facts. It had to do with me.
Please check out NPR interview Valley of Amazement and TED Talk Where Does Creativity Hide for more information on Amy Tan's work. Thank you for viewing our presentation. We hope you have enjoyed it.